Hey, how's it going? Welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to be covering the only funnels that work for high ticket services in 2025. This is going to be based on all the spend I've done with my clients, myself, things we've tried in the past, what's been working really, really well, what hasn't been working so well that maybe worked in the past. So, my hope is that you're going to get a ton of value out of this. I will be covering some stuff that you've probably heard before, which I'll get to in just a second. But I have to share key insights that show you what make or break those funnels because some of the stuff you've heard probably does work. It's just some of the small nuances that not many people talk about that make those work or not work. So, that being said, if you're running a B2B service or a B2C service and you sell something high ticket, really over $3,000, or you think you could charge over $3,000 for what you offer, then this video is going to be great for you. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So what we'll be covering is these funnel types. These are the ones that I've tried, that I've heard used and seen used by other very successful companies. And these are what they are. First is the Facebook group funnel. Next is low ticket to high ticket. After that is Facebook lead form funnels. Then it's going to be the VSL ads funnel. And this is different from a VSL call funnel, which I'll explain. And it's very, very good if you do it right. And it can help you scale very fast, find the right messaging, and a whole bunch of other really cool stuff. And honestly, I don't see a lot of people using this one. This one's pretty unique. Next is going to be the traditional VSL call funnel. And the last is going to be the webinar. And again, like I said, you probably heard of these before, but I'm going to walk you through what worked, what didn't, how we tweaked them, and why we each one either succeeded or failed. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the real reasons funnels don't work. If you really think about the purpose of a funnel and what it actually does, its only purpose is to deliver your message. Now, I've tested a ton of funnel strategies. Some worked, a lot didn't. But the most important thing that I learned is funnels don't convert people. Your messaging does. If your messaging isn't right, no funnel is going to work for you. It doesn't matter if you do a Facebook group or whatever, or some random person's new funnel strategy they created. It's just not going to work. Your messaging is what converts people. I mean, think about it this way. If you went through a funnel process and it had no copy or no message in it, would you convert? No. And I know that's a ridiculous example, but it shows you that the funnel does not convert people. If the funnel converted people, then you could have no copy, or your copy could make absolutely no sense, and people would end up buying. And you and I both know that's not going to happen. So that proves to you that your funnel's only purpose is to distribute your message. That's it. And if the message is bad and it doesn't align with the problems that your clients have, it doesn't give them a decision reframe and show them what the true root cause of their problem is, how you can solve it, how you do it in a unique and different way, you're really going to struggle making this happen. And I actually realized this when I took a look at Russell Brunson's books. And the first book he ever came out with, and Russell Brunson's the person who kind of created or really popularized the idea of a sales funnel. And when he created his first book, it was all about funnel building, funnel strategy, what pages to put where, how it worked, and just really kind of building the idea of sales funnels and how they work. But right after that, he came out with his second book, which was called Expert Secrets. And I actually saw him in an interview talking about how he launched his first book, .com Secrets. It taught everyone sales funnels, but no one was converting because their messaging was terrible. And he worked with clients, mentees, like people in his inner circle group, and everyone that he worked with, that when they focused on changing the messaging, funnels just started producing for them. They were profitable, they were acquiring clients, like everything was just working way better for them. And that's because the messaging is what actually converts. So yes, I'm going to walk you through the funnel types I've tested and what works best, and I'll explain why, the nuances, how you should approach these, when to use them. But if you take nothing else away from this, just remember, if the message is wrong, the funnel does not matter. So let's go ahead and now start diving into the different funnel types. So the first one is the Facebook group funnel. So the Facebook group funnel is where you put out an ad that either promotes a lead magnet, or sometimes I've seen it where it promotes just the Facebook group. I've actually ran it. When I ran this funnel before, I just promoted the Facebook group. And the idea is you get someone to either get your lead magnet or sign up for the group. They get into the group. You've got some content in there that they could watch, you can nurture them. But really, the purpose of this is to just get people joining the group. And then you can set them, which is, DMing them, sending them messages, and getting them on a sales call to ultimately sell them. Now, this is good if you're targeting the right person. This is not going to work for high level B2B companies. Like business owners who are doing 50,000 or 100,000 a month, they don't want to hang out in a Facebook group. And if you're B2C, say you've got like a landscaping company, people probably aren't going to want to get in a Facebook group to learn about landscaping. Maybe it could work. I don't see it being the most effective way. And that's also actually a key nuance to all of this. I'm going to say what worked and what didn't work, what I would recommend and what I wouldn't recommend. That doesn't mean that every single one of these could work in their own specific situations. Maybe you do run, a Facebook group funnel for Fortune 500 executives, and you have something very unique like, tax saving strategies, and you're nurturing people there. That could make sense. But if we're talking about like B2B, it's very difficult to say for sure, like this is the way to go or this is not. Again, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. This is my opinion. This is what I would do, or just kind of like high level advice on what works and what doesn't. So with the Facebook group, kind of what I found is it's kind of slow. It's a little bit soft and it's a little bit indirect. There's a lot of pull that goes into it. I would probably only use this if you're targeting people who are like solopreneurs who are looking for help with, acquiring clients or whatever. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't do it. If you're going after some of these higher level B2B, or even if you're like a local B2C service, the other strategies are probably going to be better. You could do some cool stuff. You can build authority with a Facebook group, but for the most part, I think these other funnel strategies are probably going to work a bit better. So now we're going to talk about low ticket to high ticket. And this one's super interesting, but it's hard. It's very hard to do. So the structure for this is typically you'll run an ad to some kind of like $27 offer or $97 offer. Sometimes you'll see people doing it with books. So they'll do like a free plus shipping book, and then they add upsells after. And then once they go through that process, you push them to a call on the back end and you sell them like the high ticket service, whether it's, at ad agency, you offer them ads management, or if it's like business process outsourcing, maybe you do like a couple small things for them. And then once you get them results, you upsell them. It's really cool. It can work really well, but it's super hard to do. Like when you're selling someone something directly on a sales page, your messaging needs to be perfect. Like you can't miss anything because you have to handle all their objections, their fears, their concerns. You have to risk reverse them, all of that stuff just in a sales page using a VSL and some other content on that page. And if you don't do that, you're going to get super low conversion rates. And the other side of that too is you have to make sure that you're able to acquire clients at a price cheap enough and get your LTV at a price high enough that it either breaks even, maybe you make a little bit of profit, or maybe you lose enough or a little bit of money, but you can convert enough people on the back end that it becomes profitable. There's just so much that goes into it. Again, I put here, like you need killer copy, upsells that lift your AOV, appointment setters and closers, because now you have to call those people. Because I've gone through this funnel a couple times for other people, and what I've seen them try to do is, you purchase a $27 thing, then maybe an upsell or maybe another one. And then they'll start sending you messages that say, hey, you got, a free consultation or a free strategy call. And most people, especially I think after all the years of internet marketing, people have gone through these programs. I think people are they're more understanding of what a lot of marketers say actually means. Like when people message me and say, oh, hey, here's a strategy call, like they might as well just say, hey, can we try to sell you on something that's more expensive? Like I just know it's coming. Yes, I am a marketer, but I think for the most part, people know a strategy call, not really a strategy call. It's going to be a sales call. So what they did is they tried to say, hey, here's the strategy call, hop on it, talk with our team. And I never scheduled it because I knew it was just a sales call. And the surprising part, because this was a really big company, they didn't have any appointment setters reach out to me to get me on that call. So if you don't have that, you're already missing out on some revenue, because honestly, if they got me on the call, there was a chance I probably would have bought, but they never made any effort. And I wasn't going to go out of my way to schedule that sales call because I knew it was a sales call. So unless you have appointment setters, really good closers, people who know how to handle that kind of close or that kind of sale, because it is a bit different, because you have to handle the fact that people are like, oh, well, I got this cheaper stuff. Like, let me go ahead and use that first, and then I'll come back to you guys. And when I come back to you guys, after I've done all that, then maybe I could talk about this higher ticket thing. It's a different type of close. It's kind of like you have to maneuver that, and there's certain language you need to use throughout the call to handle that kind of stuff. But if you've got this and you're doing like a few $100,000 a month or potentially even more, and for whatever reason, maybe you want to diversify, like, it's very hard to do. That's all I'll say. If you got the money, you've got the willingness, and there's a reason behind it, I would do it. But again, I think some of the other funnel strategies are going to be way easier. So yeah, I put down here, I've run this before. I've worked with clients who ran it. Some do well, but most people burn cash because it's very difficult to do. You never break even. You struggle to convert that back end. It's just a big lift. You might as well just go straight to the high ticket stuff. The other case that I do kind of like for this is if you do like a $1,500, that's still that's not really high ticket. It's like medium ticket, I guess. But like $1,500, which is somewhat impulsive for people who are like B2B, in some cases B2C. But like you could do a $1,500 setup for something that clearly builds into recurring back end or high ticket stuff on the back end. A good example of this is I actually saw a cold email agency that does this. They do a setup for all the cold email stuff, and then they roll them into agency services or like a high ticket coaching program on the back end. And from what I've heard, they do very, very, very well with this. I think they also have data and stuff that they sell them too. So that's a good back end. But it works so well into the Ascension, like that low ticket setup. And then they're going to need the data. They're going to need, coaching. They're going to need some help. They're going to need offer creation. They're going to need to start building out more content. Like the need for that next step is very, very clear. So I think the only way I would recommend this is if you have something that's a really highly desirable kind of $1,500-ish setup, and then you have clear ascension into the back stuff where it's not like you have to make this huge pull and people are like, saying the objection of like, yeah, I'm gonna wait until I kind of look at the cheaper stuff and then I'm gonna buy your higher ticket stuff. That becomes way more difficult. So make sure if you do want to try this one, do like $1,500 and ascend it, make sure there's a clear ascension. Otherwise, I would try one of the other ones. So let's talk about the Facebook lead form funnel. This one's interesting. This is actually the first funnel that I started using when I was working with clients because it produces so many calls. And that has pros and cons. You can see here over to the right, with one of my clients, we booked 73 total calls at $56.62 per call, which is extremely, extremely cheap. It was great, but when we tracked the cost per acquisition and the cost per qualified offer, it ended up being higher because this is like a volume type funnel. I think there are trade-offs. Like, to give you the structure real quick, you run the ad to a native Facebook lead form. So Facebook actually has a lead form within the ads you can use. So when someone sees the ad, instead of clicking and going to a separate page, they click and a form pops up right on Facebook. And that's good because it actually like pre-fills their name, email, phone number. I think phone number, but name and email for sure. But what you do is you create that as like your application. So they would go through and answer a few questions, and then their information's already filled in. And then after they input that information, they're taken to a confirmation page still within Facebook. But what you do then is you take that confirmation page on Facebook and you put in copy that says like, wait, you're not done yet. You still need to schedule the call. Click the button below and we'll take you to our calendar. So then they click that button, they go to the calendar, they schedule, then you take them to the call confirmation page, which should have a video of you, some content, that kind of stuff. But again, I think there are pros and cons. With this, you get really like insanely low cost per lead. You can book a ton of calls. It's the fastest funnel to get running, super easy, but it's lower intent. The show rates are going to be lower. People often don't finish scheduling because they get lost between the application or the form on Facebook and the calendar. And the lead quality is usually worse than traditional funnels. Another problem here is when people autofill their information, sometimes they're autofilling like a BS email that they'll never look at. Like for me, for example, when I click on these and I see them and I've tested this, it fills in an email that I created when I was like 12 years old. Like I'm never going to look at that. I'm never going to see those emails. So you do lose a lot of people who maybe just put in faulty emails. So does have some cons. Again, a lot of volume though. Like we've had really great success in getting like $40, $60 cost per call. But again, when you track that, sometimes the quality is so bad that your cost to acquire is like the same as if you did a VSL, but you're taking like twice as many calls and you've got twice as many no shows. It can kind of be a bit of a disaster. But use this if you need volume fast and you have a team to follow up hard. Like if you can get those applications and you can hit those people right away, qualify them, and then set them to a designated closer, that's good because you're just going to have so much volume coming in, so many leads for so cheap that you can really work to push people through to the call. But if, yeah, and also use it if you're okay with trading some quality for quantity. Don't always love this strategy. I think it's fine. It's a good way to just start getting stuff coming through. But again, I think if you're willing to pay like 3 times as much, $150 for a call, which is definitely not unreasonable for most people, especially if you're selling something over $3,000, you probably just want to go with one of the other funnel strategies. So now we'll talk about the VSL ad funnel. And this is going to be different than the VSL call funnel, which I guarantee you've seen, probably been through yourself, maybe even had an agency build out for you or a freelancer or something like that. But the VSL ad funnel is actually kind of a combination of a few different people that I've worked with or been like mentored by, or, you know, where they're coaching programs. And this funnel is very, very good if you haven't run ads before. Maybe you're doing, you know, a few $100K a month on warm traffic. You've got a good idea of who your ideal client is. You solve like a few different things with a couple of services, and you're trying to crack cold traffic essentially. What you do here is you'd actually go to your existing client base. And what we do is we look at your existing client base and say, okay, who is the 20% of these clients that are driving 80% of the revenue? So we're going to find most likely that there's like one or two personas that fit that criteria. Like they buy stuff from you all the time. They're your favorite people to work with. They keep buying things over and over again. They stay with you the longest. They're the easiest to get results. So now we're going to say, okay, that's the persona we want to target. Then what we do is we go to that persona, we get 10, 15, 20 of them to hop on a call with us. We give them some type of benefit or whatever for jumping on the call. And then we start asking them, like, what was the problem that you actually worked with us on? Why did you do it? Why did you work with us versus all these other people? And what we're looking to do is find different angles. So by different angles, I don't mean like variations of like, okay, so there are angles and there are variations. An angle would be like, for me, example, with our agency services and our consulting and everything that we do, there are kind of 4 angles that we look at. Ads aren't profitable, sales team isn't converting, lead quality is bad, and not booking enough sales calls. Those are 4 different angles because it's essentially 4 different problems. Like the same person, someone who says their sales team isn't converting, probably they could, but probably not going to respond to my ads aren't profitable because it's a different problem that they're prioritizing. A variation would be more of like, oh, my ads aren't profitable. My ad costs are too high. See how it's small tweaks on this same problem. That's going to be a variation versus an angle. What we're looking to do here is find 4 angles, 4 different problems that people, your existing clients, said they had experienced. Then what we do is we take that and we put those 4 angles, we create different VSLs for each of them. We put those 4 angles into 4 different campaigns, and then we run it. And then what that's going to show us is we're going to be able to see which one of those VSLs is bringing in the most calls at the best price, that are also quality calls and maybe even converted. All we're trying to see is which one of these angles resonates the most when we advertise. What's typically going to happen is you're going to see one of them that does horrible. You're going to get no results. And that's great. We want to turn that off. The second is probably going to do a bit better. We'll probably turn that off. And then you'll get 1, maybe 2 that do very, very well. Most likely you're going to find one that is like clearly doing better than the rest. And what you do, or what happens when you do this, is now you're finding out what message your market actually responds to before you spend a ton of money building a funnel and doing all the back end stuff. Like, all we're trying to do here is just get people to see this VSL, watch it, click through, fill out a form, and schedule a call. That's all we're trying to do. Because again, you will see that one of them is going to get more people coming through at a better cost. And then you're going to get on those calls. And honestly, like, you can try to convert them, but that's not really what you're looking to do here. You're just looking to make sure, like, is this the right person? Do they have the right problem? Why are they on the call? Are they looking to purchase? Are they skeptical? Are they like weary about it? Are they getting on that call? Are they showing up at high rates and they're like, hey man, I really need this. This is a problem I have. Super excited to learn how you guys could potentially help me. Once you find that, then you turn off all the other angles and you're going to stick with that angle and run different variations of that. That's when you can kind of switch over more to like you can even continue to run it this way, but you'd probably want to switch over more to what we'll talk about next, which is the VSL call funnel, because you just take that VSL that you already created and put it onto a page. It's that simple. So this is very, very, very good to validate offers, find the strongest angle, get fast feedback from cold traffic, and pre-test your VSL before scaling it with your main funnel and putting it on a page. Because think about it, if you run a regular VSL call funnel, which I'll kind of get into here, you run an ad, then you take them to the VSL page, then they got to watch it, then they go to the application and the scheduler. With this, we're just kind of removing this whole first stage. So they don't need to go into an opt-in page, or they don't need to go into all this other stuff. You're just putting the VSL there and you're like, hey, this is what I can do. Here's how we do it. Here's how it's different. If you got this problem, we can help. Here's our offer. Go schedule a call. You're going to know what's working right away. So really good for pre-testing the VSLs. And it is going to be a little bit more expensive because you're testing, some money on the other angles that might not work. But it's one of those things where it's like, man, if you can just accept that you might lose some money trying to figure out the best option, you're going to take off way more later because you found the right option. That's sometimes with ads, like, you just have to accept, okay, I'm going to front load some losses to get some wins later on and do it at a much bigger level. This is a prime example of that. Like, if you can eat, $1,500, maybe $2,000 on testing this, finding the right VSL, then when you run it, you know that you're running the right messaging. And that means you can stick with that messaging, create variations in the ads, even improve the VSL a little bit if it needs it. And you're just going to scale much more because the messaging is no longer the question. And again, the messaging is what makes or breaks a funnel. It's not the funnel strategy. Can it be sometimes? Yes. Like, if you're running low ticket and it's not converting, then it's the funnel problem. But still, I would say that comes down to a messaging issue. So this is really, really good for figuring out that messaging. And if you do this, I can tell you with a high level of confidence, you're going to do very, very well. So next is going to be the VSL call funnel. So this is probably one you've heard of or seen before or been through on your own before. And the way this one works is it's an ad. And then sometimes people send from that ad to an opt-in page. An opt-in page is going to be your traditional headline, sub-headline, maybe an image of the video, and then a button for you to put in your name, email, phone number, and go over to the video, which is framed as like training or something like that. Now, some people put the opt-in page there. The idea behind the opt-in page is that more people are going to put in their information, and then you can email them, set the appointments, reach back out to them, all that good stuff, appointment set or nurture leads. But what you can do is you can take that opt-in page out. You can get more people to the VSL. And the idea is maybe, a guy like, let's call him John. Maybe John sees the ad, he clicks through, and he's a really high intent buyer. He's ready to go, but he's a busy guy. He's a high level executive, and he doesn't want to click, or he doesn't want to put in his name, email, phone number because he knows he's going to get blown up by your team. So he just literally leaves the page. He was high intent. He would have bought. He would have done everything, but he didn't want to fill out the form on the opt-in page to buy that. So what you can do is actually take that out. So now John gets to that page. He watches the video. Now he's going to schedule a call. And a lot of people get nervous about this because they're like, well, aren't I missing out on all of those leads? And you are, but what you're also creating is a warm retargeting audience. And what you then do is you take that audience that came to that page but didn't schedule, and you start running them more ads with more content that explains what you do, handles objections, and pushes them to schedule a call. So you're losing them, yes, but you can retarget them for very, 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 very cheap and push them in through the call. And actually, the funny thing about that is sometimes those people are going to be a bit more indoctrinated because they've been consuming content, not just emails. They're not just getting a text or a call getting pushed to an appointment. They're consuming content that's getting them more excited to buy, more interested, and then we push them to the call through there. So you can go with the opt-in page depending on what your budget looks like. It might make sense to have one, or it might make sense not to. That's just really, I mean, the opt-in page is optional. Okay. So after the opt-in, or maybe you go right from the ad to the VSL page, that's where your video is going to be. That's your core message. This needs to be a direct offer of what you're going to do, the timeline, if you got a risk reversal, just explaining what outcome you're going to get people, why you're different, how it's done, and just answering the questions that they have. Then once they go through, they'll fill out the application, or once they watch that video, they'll fill out the application, schedule a call, and then they start the process of the pre-nurturing, which can be on the confirmation page through text, email, calls, and then they'll get on that call and they'll either close or not close. So one thing I want to mention about this is the VSL funnel your VSL call funnel is very, very good. This is like my favorite one, but a big mistake that a lot of people make. I made this for a very long time. It was super frustrating. But once I finally got it, I mean, this started really producing great results. You assume that the VSL alone will fully indoctrinate people. So if you've run a VSL funnel in the past and you've gotten on the calls and they're like, who are you again? Like, why are you here? Or why are we here? What was this call about? Oh, yeah. Like, and then the call ends with like, I'll think about it. Yeah, let me do some more research. That's because they're not indoctrinated. And that's the main reason for that is because the VSL alone won't do it. You need to, after they schedule a call, have information on that confirmation page, testimonials. You want to have common objections or questions that you get on the sales call when people kind of treat it more like an education call than a sales call, like they're not in a buyer mindset. You want to take all those questions that they typically ask on calls and put them on the confirmation page, send emails, text, create an ebook, other content that you can hit them with that's going to answer those calls. And you want to increase the level of interest that they have in buying. What the goal is with the VSL, you want to get as many people seeing your core message in the VSL and booking a call. And then you want to take them, because you're going to have varying levels of interest. And I have another video about the levels of awareness and levels of interest, but you're going to have varying levels of interest. And you want to get all of those people to go from maybe just curious to, hey, I'm in a buyer's mindset. I'm getting on this call, trying to figure out how you guys can do this for me. That's the whole purpose of the pre-call nurturing. You need to do that, or this funnel is going to be a tough one. Like, you're going to have to be very, very good at sales. You're going to have to hire ninja salespeople, and it's doable, but like, why make it harder for your team and yourself than it should be when you could just handle it with better marketing? If you do that, it's much easier than hiring a good sales team. So that all being said, when you get it right, this is a great funnel because it's consistent, it's scalable, it's high quality. This is really where you can get out your core message easy, start setting up calls. And if you did this one before the VSL ad funnel, you already know that your VSL converts because you just ran it out to cold traffic. So you already know it works. All you do is take that VSL, slap it on the VSL page, and then start running the ads to that VSL. The reason you would do this is because if you run this VSL, like, you just keep spending on it, it'll work for a while. But sometimes if you have different variations of that ad or of your core message, you can bring in more people, get better lead costs, get better click-through rates. So it can make sense to move from the VSL ads funnel to the VSL call funnel. But again, that's going to depend kind of on your situation, your strategy, your budget, what you're trying to do, how quickly you want to and can scale. So that's going to be kind of the big determining factor. But yeah, like I said, when you get this right, you can scale like crazy. So this is the one that I like to scale with the most because it's just so straightforward. It's easy to optimize. The numbers make sense. So you can do really, really well with this one. And the last one is going to be the webinar funnel. So the webinar funnel is great. I've run this with clients before. I've ran them myself, and they're good for what I like to think is like cleaning up conversions. The way the webinar funnel works is you run an ad to an opt-in page, people register, then they're going to get reminders and all that, reminders, nurturing content, retargeting ads with further nurturing. And then they're going to go to the webinar, watch that webinar, and they're going to book a call and or buy. So this one is way less about like consistency and more about bursts of conversion. So with the VSL call funnel, like you see, a consistent, it's probably a little bit up, but like a consistent increase in calls and sales. Like it's pretty steady. And with this, it's like within 4 days, you're getting all of your sales for the month. So this one, and when I was working with a client where we ran this only like once a month, twice a month, sometimes a webinar funnel. And it's a little bit nerve wracking, to be honest. Like it's either make or break on that webinar. If something happens, like you miss out on a ton of sales, and it's just going to create some issues. What I do really like about this one is you can actually take all of the people who are either in your warm audience, your email list, people who booked a call but didn't convert. Like there are all these people who kind of fall through on the VSL call funnel, and you can push all of that traffic to this webinar. So let's go through a hypothetical example. Like say you're running the VSL call funnel, you've got your warm retargeting audience of people who have watched your videos, watched your content, watched your ads. They've gone to the page. Maybe you probably got people who applied but didn't purchase. We can exclude people who purchased. And we've got this big warm audience that we can remarket to. Then you've got all the leads on your email list that you can remarket to. And then you've got like just all of these people like kind of somewhat surface level aware of your messaging. Then what you do is you create an ad to the retargeting audience. You start driving opt-ins that way. You go to your email list, you push those people to sign up. Then you got all these people who are like clearly interested, but maybe they just didn't convert for whatever reason. Then you take them through this webinar, you give them a much longer sales presentation than you would on your VSL with way more information, way more case studies. You just really sell people on this, and then you push them to book a call. So there's like all this work that you already did with the VSL call funnel and all the money you already spent. Now we're just extracting more revenue out of those audiences. And that's really good because you can supplement the VSL call funnel. And it's really not a ton of work to do this. All it is really is just, it takes a while. Like you're going to be on a webinar for an hour and a half, whatever day you do it. So it's great, like I said, to supplement. You can run it as your main conversion mechanism, but you're going to be relying on just one day. One thing I will say is we've tried running this twice a month, and I quickly realized that the number of conversions or the number of signups we were getting from our warm audience like drastically dropped because people kept seeing the same webinar and messaging over and over again. So then what we tried to do is we tried to say, okay, well, let's just keep changing the topic, create new angles to go about, like, create new angles or new variations of our messaging to keep bringing people in. And even though we did that, we still saw lower signups. They were a bit better, but then the problem became the client I was working with wasn't familiar with the script of the webinar. So they were going through the webinar kind of like messing up on some words, getting lost, not really knowing what was being said. And then our conversions dropped. So you have to kind of be careful. Like I think the best way to do this one is going to be like once a month, and you're pushing to those warm audiences. You might want to bring in some cold traffic too if you have the budget to spend on it. And if those people don't convert, same thing, retarget them, remarket them, push them into the VSL. Like kind of just use these two to build off of each other. But those are a couple of things that I noticed that I just wanted to point out because they can definitely hurt you if you try to overdo it. And you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you're bringing as many people in as possible each month, maybe liquidating some ad spend, however you think about it. And with this and the VSL call funnel, you can do really cool stuff if you kind of use them to tag team and build out your audience. So next, I want to talk about final thoughts on what actually worked. So the three that I love the most, as you can probably tell, are the VSL ad funnel. This is where you can test the angles, get message market clarity, move that into the VSL call funnel. So that's so now that you know the messaging, you know what VSL works, you go to the VSL call funnel and you start scaling that way. And then once you're scaling up and you start to build out these audiences, you're spending a lot on ads, you probably will want to start doing the webinar funnel at least once a month. Well, I would do it once a month. And that's going to maximize the warm traffic, start pulling people out of your list, kind of speeding up that sales cycle. And if you do these three kind of in order, to be honest, you're going to get very, very good results. Again, the biggest thing is figuring out the messaging. And if you figure out the right messaging with this VSL ad funnel, all of this other stuff is going to be way easier, because now you're not going to be wondering, well, should we be talking about this problem, or should we talk about this problem or this problem or this problem? You're going out, you're getting real market feedback. Okay, this is what the most amount of people want. We can easily reach them on Facebook or Instagram or whatever ad platform you're using. We know what works. Now what we want to do is take that angle. We're going to use that as our main angle. Now we just want to create variations around that, different hooks, different whatever, to pull more people in to that same core message. So if you run that VSL ad funnel, then take that messaging, you got the right messaging. Now it's just scaling up, creating more ads, refining the sales process, and figuring out like really what your offer is, the pricing, that kind of stuff. And then once you got all that down and it's starting to scale and you're pushing up, then you start running that webinar funnel to just collect a few more or a little bit more revenue out of this. So like I said, this is what I would recommend. The rest of them, they have their place, but a lot of the time they're just too slow, too complex, or too weak for serious growth. There's too much that goes into them. So I would say if you're trying to, if you're doing 50, 100K, 250K, even more a month, and you're looking to crack cold traffic, this process is the way I would take you through, because I just know for a fact, if you hit the messaging, then you put it into a call funnel, and then you collect more revenue with the webinar funnel, you're going to get great results. So I hope you enjoyed this video of the funnels that have been working in 2025 and the lessons that we've had in trying all of these funnels. I hope you got something out of it. And if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments.